Hello, folks. We're going to give just one more minute for everyone to filter in and get settled. I think we can get going. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Julie Ratu. I'm the project lead for Section 55 Rate Reform. I am hosting today's Public Rate Forum along with several MaineCare colleagues at the department, including Jess Levesque, our Delivery System Reform Coordinator, and David Jorgensen, Associate Director of Data Analytics and Rate Setting. We also have Mandy Lee, our Rate Reform Coordinator, who will be providing technical assistance today, and all three will be assisting with managing overarching meeting logistics. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat to any of the four of us as hosts. We will not be accepting official comments through the chat feature. However, if you have questions or any technical difficulties, please feel free to reach out. I will turn the presentation over to Jess to kick us off.
Okay. Thank you, Julie. Jessica Levesque, DSRU Program Coordinator, as Julie said. And I'll go through some housekeeping and some rate reform information for you. Next slide, please, Mandy. So some housekeeping items, you'll notice that you're on mute upon entry, and we will allow you to come off mute at the end of the presentation. The Q&A function should be available for you to enter questions in during the presentation, and there'll be a time frame at the end to ask questions verbally or make comments. This meeting's being recorded, and at the end of this presentation, by the end of the day tomorrow, this video will be posted on the Rate Reform System webpage, along with the PowerPoint presentation. And in this, you'll have the email address that you can submit your official comments to. Next slide, please, Mandy. So today's agenda looks a little long, but I'm sure we'll get through it in good time here. So introductions have already been done. I will be going over the rate determination process. Then Julie's going to discuss the overview of the MaineCare Benefits Manual for Section 55. And then there'll be draft rate methodology, draft rates, period of time for questions and comments, what your next steps of this particular rate determination is, and then request for some recommendations. And just again, there's a reminder that we are recording this meeting. Next slide, please. So for anybody who hasn't been a part of any of MaineCare's rate determinations, this became a Maine law in 2022, which is now Title 22 MRS 3173-J. And that is our rate reform law. And what you can expect due to this law is it allows for set schedules of regular rate reviews. It ensures relevance of state and national data to inform the rates and the payment amounts, which is basically saying, like, we'll look and see if there's a Medicare rate or maybe some other states that we benchmark to before we do a rate study. During this process, it's clear and a transparent process for the rate determination. Basically, that's why we're having our meeting today. Like, here's what we did, and we want your input and your thoughts on what we did. And part of the law also is added a Reform MaineCare Advisory Committee, which you'll hear referred to as the MAC. And then we also have a technical advisory panel, which is called the TAP. And that's basically what the law has allowed, is that make sure that we review all these different services in a certain time frame, and they keep getting reviewed, and that the participants in these services can participate when, where, reviewing their rates. So thank you all for participating today because that's what we want and that's how we get a better process. Next slide, please, Mandy. So what has happened so far in your rate determination process for Section 55 is there was an initiation notice that went out on April 16th, 2026. I'm just going to say I always like to put a plug in here for sign up for notices. So if you found out about this meeting by chance and you didn't receive notification, there you can sign up for notices, and that's how you would find out how to participate in these processes, not just for this section, but all sections. Then there was today we're doing the reform and showing you the rates and methodology that we used today. And then we're going to ask for your comments on that. So the official comment period starts today and it will end July 8th. And there'll be a email provided to you that you can submit these comments to. And then we go ahead. The next part is that we go ahead and respond to your comments. We consolidate alike comments. Then they get posted on the Rate Reform website page. And then there's going to be a second part two for this section to talk about some of the rates that are not discussed today. And so the date will be determined later, which is another excellent reason to sign up for those notices because that's how you'll be notified when the second portion of this is going to happen. Next slide, please. I think I hand this over to Julie now, but let's see. Yes. Okay. Take it away, Julie.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jess. I appreciate your overview. So kicking things off with the overview of the lab rate methodology and reform efforts. For ease of speaking in this presentation, I'll be referring to laboratories as labs. Please feel free to reach out if there's any confusion. The rate determination that we're looking at proposes updates to reimbursement for lab services only described in the MaineCare Benefits Manual, Chapter 2, Section 55. So lab services that are delivered in other settings with separate reimbursement methodology under those respective sections are reviewed and updated with the corresponding sectional policy and are not considered in this Section 55 rate determination. So we do have several goals for this project. The first is to comply with the directive for Public Law 2025, Chapter 388. So that's the supplemental budget that was passed in 2025. It included a rate reduction for Section 55 lab services, which we'll get into shortly. Part two is we also want to get, we want more payment equality across MaineCare, or sorry, not equality, equity. So to more closely align with Section 55 reimbursement with how we pay for lab services delivered by other provider types. So we also would like to use this opportunity to review and clarify model definitions and requirements in the Section 55 policy itself. So we implemented the current methodology in 2016, and those are reflected in policy. And there have been many changes in the last decade. So through this process, we're looking to update rates and just some processes to get us up to modern day. I'll go ahead and switch to the next slide, please, Mandy. So for current reimbursement methodology of what's currently in place, most lab codes are reimbursed by MaineCare. They're also used by Medicare. So this alignment allows us to benchmark reimbursement to Medicare. So that is our main methodology. So as I stated, in 2016, the department adopted our current existing methodology of 70% of the 2009 Medicare rate. Or for codes added after 2009, it's 70% of the Medicare rate in the first year CMS assigned a rate for that code. So Medicare does not apply set rates for all codes. As such, we can't benchmark to those codes. So as the Medicare rate doesn't exist. So we'll address separate methodology for those codes at our next forum. And we'll be looking for some thoughts and feedback, which we'll address at the end of the meeting related to those codes as well. Medicare, let me think. Oh, I'll also note that we usually primarily benchmark codes to the Medicare Clinical Diagnostic Laboratory Fee Schedule. but select services are still benchmarked to the main area 99 Medicare physician fee schedule. So I like calling out that distinction just so we know where the data is coming from. The COFS isn't like area specific necessarily, where the main area 99 is. So we're happy to talk more about that if folks have questions there, but please know that those are the fee schedules where we are deriving the rates at which will be we currently reimburse 70% from, and will continue to use moving forward at this point. So in addition to the statutory requirements, we're looking to update the methodology to improve clarity and ensure regular updates to the rates reflective of current and future costs. So noting that because the challenges of the current methodology, most of it has to do with they haven't been updated in a while. So the statutory requirements, citing the 3173J requirements and the public law with our statutory budget updates. So please go ahead and move to the next slide, Mandy. Also note for folks that the current MaineCare rates are posted on the Maine Health Pass portal provider portal. Thank you, Jess. So, as required by the supplemental budget, we are going to be moving forward with a new methodology. So the supplemental budget passed in 2025 included the cost savings initiative, which moved MaineCare reimbursement rates from 70% of the 2009 Medicare rates to 72.4% of the current Medicare rates. So these changes bring parity and reimbursement continuity across lab services delivered under various sections of MaineCare policy, not just Section 55. It aligns Section 55 with MaineCare's methodology for other sections where we also apply Medicare benchmarking methodology. So that improves consistency across different types of, different forms of reimbursement across MaineCare. These sections also more closely align with current Medicare rates, which are reflective of automation developments, technological advancements since rates were established in 2009, as well as there's just other related developments in the lab services landscape that are not currently incorporated and reflected in the current rates. So as Medicare rates evolve, so will MaineCare's. This is a big development that we're excited about. So as the new draft methodology doesn't tie rates to a specific year, we're going to be able to keep up with rate adjustments implemented by Medicare, which in theory is going to reflect industry costs and developments and such. So these rates will not be concrete. They will follow Medicare's updates. So I'll highlight big overarching thoughts here is the MaineCare reimbursement for codes with this new methodology may increase or may decrease depending on the code, and rates will continue to fluctuate each year as a result of regular updates and alignment with the Medicare updates. So those will continue to fluctuate. And again, these draft reimbursement rates are determined pursuant to the Public Law 2025, Chapter 388. Go ahead and move on to the next slide, Mandy. Here's a handful of examples to demonstrate the reimbursement shift with the new methodology. We have listed a few of some of the most frequently billed lab codes. So as you can see, there's a variety of increases and decreases with the updated methodology. I'll note the rates that we've included here are the 2026 Medicare rate. So with each update, depending on the year that the update is made, we will see changes in those rates. So just give folks a minute to look at that. Go ahead and move along, Mandy. All right, short and sweet. We're going to move into the questions and comments period. So folks are welcome to share if you have specific questions or if you would like to provide official comment. We do now accept official comment orally through this forum. You may also submit written comment either in addition to or in lieu of oral comments provided today. So please keep your questions or comments semi-limited. We don't have a huge group today, so no need to necessarily time yourselves, but just do be mindful that others may wish to speak. So in order to raise your hand, just go ahead and go to the reactions or participants section down at the bottom of your screen. There's meeting controls. So um, there's a raise hand option to select there at the bottom. So go ahead and click that raise hand option. You can also press Alt Y on the keyboard to raise your hand. I don't believe we have anyone on the telephone today. If you are, press *9. So I welcome folks to go ahead and raise their hands if they are interested in providing comment. Awesome. Guillermo, please feel free to share.
Juliana, thank you so much. Just curious, is this the last time this was reevaluated was back in 2009? Is that correct?
Thank you for that clarifying question. So the last time that MaineCare evaluated these codes and rates was 2016. That was the last date of adoption and update. We used 2009 rates. Since 2016, there have been shifts on the Medicare side, and there have been new codes added. So there are new codes that have been added as recently as this year. So not all codes have had the rate necessarily since 2016, but of the codes that were in existence and did not have other rate changes impacted from other external factors, then for the most part, it's been since 2016. David, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that for clarifying purposes?
Nope, I think you covered it.
Great. Michael, please go ahead and unmute and share.
Yeah, I was just curious when you mentioned the adjustment based on, oh, sorry, my camera's not on. Let me do that. You I gotta move my screen over here. Sorry, disrupting the meeting. You mentioned automation, and then after that, you said other changes in the laboratory space, which I think you were intimating in efficiency and lowered costs in the laboratory space. So I wondered what on your side when you said that about changes in the laboratory space in particular.
I'm sorry, Michael. I had trouble hearing you here and there. I was cutting out a bit, but it sounds like what are we looking at for changes in the laboratory space? I don't have the set list of all of those factors in front of me, and I don't think I'd be the best person to speak to that anyway. However, we'd be happy to provide additional insight. Thankfully, where we are working with Medicare and utilizing Medicare's rates, like we can pull some of the content that they've been able to provide to this point as well. So where we're, basing our rates off of their considerations for these developments, we don't have to go in and do the groundwork necessarily. They've supported in that. So it is quite transparent, and it'll be helpful to get a better understanding of what that looks like. And I assume it's pretty code and service specific as well. So
Okay.
yeah, we'd be happy to elaborate further in our response.
Okay.
Juliana, can I ask a point of clarification,
Please do.
So the proposal is henceforth, the fee schedule for MaineCare will be 70, or you're proposing 72.4% of current year Medicare. So that will change with each Medicare year. So it'll be constantly changing on January 1 of each year based on the clinical laboratory fee schedule. for Medicare. Is that correct?
Thank you for that clarifying question. It will align with Medicare to the extent that we're able to update our systems as well. So there might be some difference in the date at which they are adopted because Medicare will have to catch up to after Medicare posts. So that will be communicated when those updates are anticipated to take effect. And it's not necessarily the same time every year as well. So we'll have to keep an eye on Medicare's actions um, because we will need to wait for their updates in order to make them on our end. But we will be in alignment, whatever that might look like.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think Medicare's typical practice is to update every January, but if there are ever off-cycle updates that Medicare implements, we would also mirror those off-cycle updates. So if they happen to change rates on a quarterly basis or mid-year basis, then we would follow Medicare's lead on that and still benchmark to that same 72.4% of that current Medicare rate.
I just want to put a plug in for my messages I've put in the chat while we're waiting to see if anybody else has any questions or comments. I did put some links in there. People want to grab them now. One, so that you'll be able to go right to that MaineCare rate reform system site and see the presentation. And one is to sign up for those notices if you haven't already. And if anybody didn't have the Health Pass link, I put it there. And then I also put the email to submit any official comments too. So just wanted to say that while there was silence in the room, waiting to see if there's any more comments.
So Jessica, was that the last link that you included?
The last link is the fee schedule. The last comment I put is the email address. Yes.
Thank you.
Which will also be listed in this presentation when it's posted.
So we'll also send out an e-message. So if you are subscribed to receive our messages, then we will be distributing one. It'll come out either later today or in the morning with the appropriate links. All right. Well, while folks are thinking, we have one more semi-surprise agenda item that we can move to, and then we would be happy to open the door back up for comments and questions. Mandy, could you switch one more slide for me? So next steps, what we'll be looking for is we will have the comment period. As Ed just shared, there are a variety of locations where you can access the link, but you're welcome to reach out to us as well if you need any assistance there. But we can go ahead and recap the project timeline if that'd be helpful. So the comment period does start today. It extends for a couple of weeks through July 8th. Please submit the written comments to the email here by midnight, if at all possible, 11:59. We will then begin reviewing responses responses and the next steps and such to inform our methodology the next day, July 9th. We will plan to host a second public rate forum later this summer to propose the updated reimbursement methodology for Section 55 codes, which cannot be benchmarked to Medicare. And this summer, we'll also look to finalize the draft rates and post them to the webpage along with our comment summaries. at which point we'll advance with the rulemaking process. Next slide, please, Mandy. All right, a little extra treat here for all of us. We would love your recommendations. So we have a request separate from the official rate determination process and materials presented earlier in this meeting. There are a handful of codes reimbursed by Medicare, by MaineCare, which Medicare does not have a set rate for. So therefore, we're unable to benchmark and need to develop a new methodology to determine rates. We currently reimburse for those codes with a flat rate. That methodology is not reflective of the actual cost of delivering such services, nor do the flat rates reflect the technology advancements and developments within lab services. So we will discuss the specific codes and such in the next public rate forum. But in preparation for that forum, we wanted to hear from you, our stakeholders, to see, what methodology approaches do you think would make the most sense for these codes? We do recognize that listed codes and unlisted codes may have different methodologies. So should you be providing recommendations, please feel free to share with us your ideas and pros and cons for multiple approaches, depending on the type of service. So we have provided a couple example codes that we're looking at that are not benchmarked to Medicare that we might be looking to update the methodology for. So we'll recognize this is a little bit out of the wheelhouse of our usual public rate forums, but just in the interest of developing the best path forward for all stakeholders involved, we figured we'd love to create an opportunity to receive feedback in advance of the forum that would inform the department's recommendations and next steps to be presented at the next forum later this summer. So I'll emphasize that the request for feedback is separate from the draft rates that we've presented earlier in today's meetings and the methodology. So it's not a component of this phase of the rate determination, but we will take the recommendations into consideration as we prepare for the next public rate forum. So you will still get opportunity to provide official comment and such after the next public forum, as well as during the subsequent rulemaking process, where all of the methodologies that we're putting forward will be drafted and proposed through that platform as well. So happy to hear any recommendations, should they be pop into the front of your minds, or answer questions related to this request, should folks have them.
Can I ask for one more point of clarification, and then I'll promise to shut up. I promise I'll be
No,
quiet.
love it, Guillermo. Go ahead.
So, I think in the introductory comments, it was stated that these rates are already codified in the 2025 budget for Maine. Is that true? Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. We still welcome comments, thoughts, and recommendations. So I open up the floor to any thoughts and comments regarding both the codes that we cannot benchmark to Medicare and the methodology that we had proposed earlier on in this presentation. So just open floor if folks have any official or unofficial comments. Okay, I think, Mandy, we can go ahead and shift to the next slide. We will, the MaineCare team will still stay on for a few minutes if folks would like to hop back in and provide feedback. But if there are no more comments, we'll officially close this public rate forum. Thank you everyone for joining us. Please feel free to reach out again with official comments or questions pertaining to this rate methodology or just our process in general. We're happy to stay connected. So thank you all for taking the time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It looks like we are